I'll be honest. I've been sitting in this chair since like 6 a.m. and my butt's sore. But here we are. This is the last video of the day for the Waking of Storm and Flames release day. I just hit submit on Instagram on my thank you list. I'm going to slowly work on Word. Oh, that was horrible English. I'm going to slowly work towards translating it over to Twitter and to Facebook because it's important for everyone to realize that it wasn't just me who had a hand in making this story the best version of itself possible. I want to talk to you now about how I became an indie author. And I'm sorry if you hear some random noise in the background. My cat's currently in here roaming around, so you may hear him, you may see him if he decides he wants to poke in. But for now, you just have to listen to this pretty face talk for a bit. So, what did it take to become an indie? I've previously told you that it took me 34 months from the time I started conceptualizing the story, first putting words on paper, admittedly one day when I was stoned. I'm not going to pull any punches there. This video is going to be a little bit raw too, so just get excited. And 34 months later, here we are today. And we have an official published work. So the first thing it took was time. A lot of time. Evenings, weekends, finding a spare hour when you get home before you get a cooked dinner. If you can't sleep at night, hammering away a couple words, going away at writing, editing, planning, organizing. But the biggest time commitment of all is learning. Like most things in life, we're never truly going to be done learning. It's just not possible. That being said, I believe I learned enough to get my foot out the door. Was it perfect? No, nor should it be. I didn't have a debut that landed on bestseller lists. I didn't have a debut that was a must watch. I was just a guy who wrote a book, and that's all I've ever wanted to be. I wanted to leave something behind. I wanted to use this as a trampoline and a springboard to get over the grief of my cat. It achieved all of those things. So I come back to the first video, good reviews, bad reviews, ugly reviews. If people stay with me for the whole series, if you read 2 pages and decide my story's not for you, perfectly fine. It doesn't matter to me one way or another. This creative pursuit ended up being everything I wanted it to be. And I got everything out of it that I wanted to, especially the courage to keep going with another story. And that's where I'm at. I'll take a walk, step by step, little by little. It's a game of inches, just like football. But I'll get there, and I'll get better. And you know, someday I might even actually write a book that the internet says, yeah, I really want that. So you know what? We keep working towards it, and we take a step toward it. And if we never make it there, if I talk to a room with 2 people in it, or if I talk to the wall like I'm doing right now, that's perfectly fine. My dream wasn't to become some international man of mystery or fame. It was to get over the grief of my cat. And if I can take you on a journey to somewhere else in the meantime, that's enough for me. That's what creativity is. After all, what's a dollar sign but a key on a keyboard? So learning. Let me come back to the old ideology, and I believe it was Nick Saban, the old Alabama football coach, who said, iron sharpens iron. And that's why from the very beginning, I set out to learn from the best that I could. I took a lot of information in from podcasts. So I want to give a shout out to those podcasts and those people that really, really helped me along the way. The first, and I'm glad I discovered them because it really pointed me in the direction of where I wanted to go with fantasy. And what absolutely inspired me was listening to these four gentlemen. And it was those, and I miss the podcast dearly. I wish it was still going, but it was Wizards, Warriors, and Words with Jed Hearn, Rob J. Hayes, Michael R. Fletcher, and Dirk Ashton. Or maybe they were all Dirk Ashton. I still haven't figured that out yet. They fostered a love of fantasy writing and helped me understand the genre as a whole. Next up, I would be remiss without mentioning Abby Emmons and Kate Emmons of The Kate and Abby Show, who taught me that everybody can write and everybody can learn this, and that there is a science behind the words and how it goes into things. And it gave me the courage to write the story I wanted to write and to tell it the way I wanted to tell it. And I achieved that. I did it. Next up would be Bethany Adizada, whose YouTube channel I really, really enjoy for showing you from the ground up, from the beginning right to where she is now, the process of becoming an indie author. Its trials, its tribulations, how difficult it is. Kudos to her for doing it as a full-time mom as well. There was a lot I learned, especially for formatting and uploading and marketing. And I can't thank Beth enough for putting her videos up on the internet for all of us to enjoy for absolutely free. The last would have to be the Novel Marketing Podcast with Timothy Umstadt, or correction, Thomas Umstadt, my apologies. That taught me a lot about marketing, about pitching. And I still listen to that pitch podcast at least once or twice a week because I'm going to have to do it here in the next couple weeks. Technically within the next couple days because I've got a signing event coming up. But I learned a lot from these groups of people because iron sharpens iron, and they came before us. They walked so that we could walk a little bit slower and then hopefully run someday. At least that's the hope. So if we have to learn and if we have to be mentored, mind you, some people will have it come natural. It's always the way it is. What personal traits would be required to be an indie? And what can you discover along the way? The first thing I want you to do if you think about doing something like this is find your why. Find your ideal reader and who you want to write your books for. But find your why. Why are you doing this? Is it just a pastime? Do you want to make a career out of it? Is it to help you get over grief or just something to give you a nice creative outlet? There's a lot of different things that you can have for your why. My why was grief, and then it became passion and love, and I don't see myself doing anything else. I even have trouble now with movies and some TV shows and what they call cheap dopamine. I don't get the same enjoyment out of them that I used to since I started writing. I think it's altered my brain chemistry, to be honest, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And what other traits would you have? I've wrote them down here, so don't mind me if my eyes drift a little bit. Perseverance, endurance, willpower, adaptability, and flexibility. Perseverance, because it's going to suck. And sorry, I told you this was going to be raw. It's going to fucking suck. It is. There's no other way around it. Endurance goes hand in hand with perseverance because you have to keep going through imposter syndrome, through self-doubt, through negative reviews, negative comments. If there's people in your life that tell you you can't do it, you have to push through the pain. You have to fight through the shade. That's the way it is. And if you have to, be like Leonidas when he told the Persians, we'll fight in the shade. So be it. Willpower, again, hand in hand with the first two. I guess you could also use discipline here. you need to ensure you stay focused. You need to ensure that you write and that you write forward. There will be time for editing later and looking back later, but write forward. Always move forward. Adaptability, because things in life are busy. Things require our attention. There's certain things we can't get away from and things that are going to take up our writing time. So there's the 5 a.m. writing club. If you want to get up before you work, write for half an hour every day. 5 days a week, that's 150 minutes. That's over 2 hours of writing. You want to stay up an extra 20, 30 minutes? Well, guess what? Same thing. That's an extra 2.5 hours of writing every week. Pour a little bit in on the weekend. If you get home and you don't have to cook dinner for 30 minutes, get on and write. Sometimes you don't even have to think about it. You could just get on and write. Get some words on a page and go to town. And flexibility, of course, in the same vein. The one thing I would also say is that there are 3 types of writers. Plotters, people who need to have every detail down on a page before they start writing. Pantsers, those who have zero outline or a very minimal outline, and then they'll just write as things come to them. And then I'm assuming there's most of us, like myself, that find ourselves in between. The plantsers, those who have a loose outline, but just write forward. The one thing I've enjoyed the most is letting the characters tell their own story. There's nothing more rewarding than the things that you'll discover as you walk through the steps with your character. It's such a wonderful exercise in getting to use your infinite imagination to create. And it doesn't have to be writing. If you're a singer like Gia Wildwood, if you're a dancer, if you're a sculptor, a painter, if you do woodworking, gymnastics, whatever it is, always have something that you create. It's so beneficial and so amazing, and I can't preach it enough. The last thing I wanted to cover off in this video is the dollar commitment, because that's always a big thing, and this always has a cost. So what did it cost me? My cover for The Waking of Storm and Flame, with all of my promotional materials, all of the different jackets for KDP and Ingram Spark, and my marketing materials was about $120 Canadian, which is at the low end of the covers. But I was also working with a limited budget because I've got a wife in school and I've got a mortgage and a car payment and life, ultimately. So it was $120 for my cover. And if I do say so myself, it's not illustrated, which I do hope to get into someday, to have my book covers illustrated. But for now, I think it looks pretty damn good. It looks pretty damn good. And so does the sequel, by the way, which you'll see in the next couple months. The editor. So my 120,000 word novel of about 373 pages cost me about $900 Canadian. I had an editor before, like I mentioned, charged me $5, took my money, but I got that back. And my new editor, Joanna, who is absolutely fabulous, and I look forward to working with in the next installment, was about $900 Canadian. And by her good graces, she also edited my book blurb or back cover copy for me as well. So I can't credit her enough for that. Lastly, with software, you'll pay very minimal stuff for hosting on KDP, Ingram Spark. I paid $50 for Movavi, a movie editing software that I use to make my trailers and videos. All of my stock footage of my trailer was through Shutterstock or a stock footage website such as Deposit Photos. So I didn't really pay a whole lot for that. BookFunnel, how I use to distribute my ebooks, is a little bit per month. I use Gmail for my email software, so it doesn't cost me anything. And outside of that, really, there's not too much else to add. All in all, I would say you could self-publish a novel with about $1,500 Canadian. depending on what you want. If you want an illustrated cover, if you want to write a really long novel, um, of course, that's going to vary the factors in pricing consideration. But if you want to write one that's about 400 pages with a pretty solid cover, at least for a debut, then it'll be about 1,500, give or take. So that's all I have. That's the last video of this amazing release day. I'm excited to have a little party again in the spring. I'm not going to tell you the date because you'll find that out here in 2 hours when I release the date announcement trailer alongside my creative compatriot and co-pilot Gia Wildwood with her theme One Step Away from Dawn, the official and original theme of the Waking of Storm and Flame sequel, The Last Cry of Innocence. I'm super excited for what we have in the future. Like I said, I hope you enjoy this novel, that you see the love I poured into the last 34 months, and I hope you stay with me. My writing will get better, my descriptions will get better as I hone this craft and I pursue this beautiful endeavor. Stick with me. There's so many amazing things to come. Talk to you soon.